Spain is today one of the most modern, accessible, and easy countries to travel in the world. But behind its vibrant cities and contemporary life lies an extraordinarily diverse land. A country where wild mountains, dramatic coastlines, and almost surreal landscapes coexist with some of the most impressive historical monuments in Europe. Castles, cathedrals, palaces, and ancient cities that have witnessed centuries of history. In this documentary, we are going to explore 25 of the most beautiful and spectacular places in Spain. Places that represent the very best of its landscapes, its culture, and its history. Some are famous all over the world. Others remain more hidden, surrounded by mountains, cliffs, or ancient towns. But they all share one thing in common. They are places that every traveler visiting Spain should experience. Prepare to discover breathtaking landscapes, unique monuments, and some of the most spectacular places this country has to offer. Because this journey through the 25 most beautiful places in Spain is about to begin. Our first destination is one of the most beautiful palaces ever built. A place where architecture, art, and history intertwine to create something almost dreamlike. High above the city of Granada rises the Alhambra, a palace city that for centuries was the heart of the Madrid kingdom. Behind its reddish walls lies a world of quiet courtyards, flowing fountains and gardens designed to evoke the idea of paradise. Here, stone becomes poetry. Arches unfold like delicate patterns of light, and the walls are covered with intricate carvings where every detail tells an ancient story. The Alhambra was never just a palace. It was a place created to celebrate beauty, water, shade, and silence. A refuge where the rulers of Al-Andalus once gazed toward the snowy peaks of the Sierra Nevada and the valleys stretching far below. Walking through its courtyards today feels like stepping through centuries. The light changes, the water still flows, and the architecture continues to speak with the same calm elegance it had more than 700 years ago. Perhaps that is why the Alhambra remains one of the most fascinating places in Spain. A place where history does not feel distant, but still alive within its walls. And from Granada, we now travel to one of the most beautiful islands of the Mediterranean, Mallorca. On its northwestern coast, hidden between wild mountains and dramatic cliffs, lies one of the most spectacular natural landscapes in Spain, the Torrent of Pareas. This extraordinary place is located in the Tramontana mountain range, a dramatic chain of mountains that crosses the island of Mallorca and has been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Over thousands of years, the force of water has carved this natural torrent through the rock, slowly shaping an impressive stone canyon. The result is a dramatic landscape, a narrow valley surrounded by towering cliffs that seem to close in as they approach the sea. Reaching this place is already an unforgettable experience. The road that leads here, known as Sa Calobra, is considered one of the most spectacular mountain drives in Europe. A series of astonishing curves winding through the mountains while the Mediterranean appears and disappears between the cliffs. At the end of the road, the landscape suddenly opens. The torrent reaches a small beach of fine sand where the waters of the Mediterranean appear incredibly clear. On both sides, massive cliffs fall almost vertically toward the sea. The contrast between the rock, the deep blue water, and the Mediterranean light creates a breathtaking view. Torrent of Pareas is not just a landscape. It is one of those rare places where nature reveals the wild beauty of the Mediterranean. Leaving behind the dramatic landscapes of Torrent of Pareas in Mallorca, our journey now continues toward one of the oldest and most fascinating cities in Spain. Rising on a hill almost completely surrounded by the waters of the Tagus River stands Toledo. For centuries, it was known as the city of the three cultures. Here Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived side by side, leaving a legacy. that can still be felt today in the atmosphere of its streets and in the ancient stone of its buildings. Walking through Toledo is like traveling across more than 2,000 years of history. Its walls, its monumental gates, and its labyrinth of narrow streets remind us that this city was once the capital of the Visigothic kingdom and later one of the great cultural centers of medieval Spain. Dominating the skyline rises the majestic Cathedral of Toledo, one of the great masterpieces of European Gothic architecture, whose towers and walls have been the spiritual heart of the city for centuries. Nearby, on the highest point of the city, stands the imposing Alcazar. Throughout the centuries, this great fortress has served as a royal residence, a palace, and the stage for some of the most dramatic episodes in Spanish history. But beyond its monuments, Toledo preserves something even more extraordinary: the memory of a time when three cultures shared the same city. Christians, Muslims, and Jews lived here for centuries, exchanging knowledge, traditions, and ways of understanding the world. For this reason, Toledo is not only a historic city, it is also a symbol, a place where the history of Spain was written by many different voices, and where, as evening falls and golden light illuminates the walls and towers above the Tagus River, the city still seems to echo the presence of those three cultures that made Toledo truly unique. Leaving behind the historic city of Toledo, our journey now continues toward one of the most majestic landscapes in northern Spain. There, among the green mountains of Asturias, rise the Picos de Europa, a land of rugged peaks, high mountain meadows, and deep valleys where nature still preserves a wild and untamed character. In the heart of these mountains lie the lakes of Covadonga. Two glacial lakes, Enol and Ercina, formed thousands of years ago when massive glaciers slowly descended through these mountains. As they retreated, they left behind the basins that today hold their clear waters. Their calm surfaces now reflect the sky, the clouds, and the surrounding peaks, creating one of the most iconic natural landscapes in Spain. Very close to these lakes stands one of the most symbolic places in Spanish history, the sanctuary of Covadonga. Hidden within the rock is the sacred cave where the Virgin of Covadonga, known by the Asturians as La Santina, is venerated. It was here that one of the most important moments in the history of Spain began. At the beginning of the 8th century, after the Muslim invasion of the Iberian Peninsula in the year 711, most of the former Visigothic kingdom had fallen under Muslim rule. But in these northern mountains, a small group of men decided to resist. Their leader was Don Pelayo, a Visigothic nobleman who gathered a small band of warriors in the mountains of Asturias. In the year 722, taking advantage of the difficult terrain of these valleys and mountains, Pelayo and his men defeated a much larger Muslim force in what became known as the Battle of Covadonga. This victory allowed the creation of a small Christian kingdom in these mountains. Over time, this stronghold of resistance would become the Kingdom of Asturias, and many historians consider this battle to mark the beginning of a long historical process known as the Reconquista, a process that, over several centuries, would gradually reshape the map of the Iberian Peninsula. Today, Covadonga is at once a place of history, faith, and nature. And when the mist rises above the lakes and the mountains appear among the clouds, the Picos de Europa reveal their full grandeur, a landscape where history and nature come together to tell the story of one of the great epics of Spain. Leaving behind the mountains and lakes of Covadonga, our journey continues toward the heart of Castile. There, on a rocky plateau between rivers and open fields, rises one of the most monumental cities in Spain, Segovia. From afar, its skyline is dominated by one of the most extraordinary works of engineering from the ancient world, the Roman aqueduct. Built almost 2,000 years ago, This immense stone structure was designed by Roman engineers to bring water from the nearby mountains into the city. For centuries, it supplied Segovia with remarkable precision and efficiency. What makes it even more astonishing is that it was built without the use of mortar. Its massive granite blocks fit together so perfectly that the structure has remained standing for nearly 20 centuries. With more than 160 arches and reaching nearly 30 meters in height at its highest point, the aqueduct has become the great symbol of the city. But Segovia holds other treasures as well. High above the city rises the elegant Cathedral of Segovia, often called the Lady of Cathedrals, for the beauty of its Gothic architecture and the light that surrounds its soaring towers. At the edge of the city stands one of the most remarkable fortresses in Europe, the Alcazar of Segovia. With its pointed towers and slate roofs, its silhouette resembles the castles of medieval legends. For centuries, it served as a royal residence and witnessed some of the most important moments in Spanish history. Here in 1474, Isabella the Catholic was proclaimed Queen of Castile. Yet the Alcazar also holds curious and mysterious stories. An old legend tells of secret passages hidden beneath the fortress, believed to connect the castle with other parts of the city. Today, the Alcazar can be visited, and those who explore its halls, courtyards, and towers discover rooms that still preserve the atmosphere of an ancient royal palace. From the top of its walls, the view opens over the vast Castilian landscape that surrounds the city. And when one sees the Roman aqueduct, the towers of the cathedral, and the unmistakable silhouette of the Alcazar, Segovia seems to gather centuries of history in a single place. A place where the legacy of Rome, the power of Castile, and the beauty of medieval architecture come together to create one of the most extraordinary historic landscapes in Spain. Leaving behind the historic city of Segovia, our journey now continues toward the northern coast of Spain. In Galicia, where the waters of the Atlantic Ocean have been shaping the coastline for thousands of years, lies one of the most extraordinary natural landscapes in the country. This is the iconic Cathedrals Beach. Here the sea and the wind have slowly sculpted the rock, creating enormous arches, caves, and passages that resemble the great vaults of a stone cathedral open to the ocean. This remarkable landscape reveals its full beauty only when the tide retreats. At low tide, visitors can walk beneath these immense natural arches that rise several meters above the sand. Light passes through the rock formations, while the constant sound of the waves echoes between the stone walls. For centuries, the power of the Atlantic has carved these cliffs layer by layer, shaping one of the most spectacular natural monuments in Spain. When the tide rises again, the sea slowly covers the sand and transforms the landscape. The arches become surrounded by water, and the beach returns to its wild and powerful character. Cathedrals Beach is not simply a beach. It is a work of art created by nature, a place where the ocean and the rock have worked together for thousands of years to raise a true natural cathedral on the edge of the Atlantic. Leaving behind the power of the Atlantic on the coast of Galicia, our journey now takes us into the heart of Spain. A city that never sleeps, a place where history and modern life move forward together. Madrid. The capital of Spain and the center of its political, cultural, and social life, Madrid is a city that unfolds between centuries of history and a constant, vibrant energy. At its center, Puerta del Sol marks Kilometer Zero, a point from which all the main roads of Spain begin, and where the pulse of the city can be felt at any hour. Nearby, Plaza Mayor opens its arcades and balconies to a space that for centuries has been the stage for markets, celebrations, and historic events. Dominating the skyline rises the Royal Palace, one of the largest royal residences in Europe, built on the site of the old Alcazar, and a symbol of the history and power of the Spanish monarchy. Just a short distance away stands Puerta de Alcalá, one of the great icons of the city. a monumental gateway that has witnessed the transformation of Madrid over the centuries. In front of it stretches El Retiro Park, a place of light, water, and nature in the heart of the city, where time seems to slow down among gardens, lakes, and tree-lined paths. But Madrid also looks toward the future. To the north of the city rise the Four Towers, a group of modern skyscrapers that shape the skyline and reflect the transformation of Madrid. Reflecting the transformation of Madrid into a major European metropolis. And yet, just a few kilometers away, history once again takes center stage, the monastery of El Escorial. Commissioned by King Philip II in the 16th century, this monumental complex was conceived as a palace, a monastery, and a center of knowledge. Inside, it houses one of the most valuable libraries in Europe, and within its royal crypts rest the kings of Spain. Madrid is all of this and much more. A city where every era has left its mark, where tradition and modernity coexist in perfect balance, and where, walking through its streets, one begins to understand that it is not just a capital, but a living reflection of the history and soul of an entire country. Leaving behind the energy and life of Madrid, our journey now continues toward one of the most imposing landscapes in northern Spain. There, forming a natural border with France, rise the Pyrenees, a mountain range of rugged peaks, deep valleys, and endless forests where nature reveals itself in its purest state. At the heart of these mountains lies one of the most spectacular protected areas in the country, the Ordesa and Monte Perdido National Park, a land shaped over millions of years by ice and water. Its glacial valleys, carved like vast natural amphitheaters, descend between towering rock walls covered with forests and crossed by waterfalls. Above them rises Monte Perdido. With more than 3,000 meters of elevation, it is one of the most iconic peaks of the Pyrenees and one of the highest limestone massifs in Europe. At its feet, the Ordesa Valley unfolds like a nearly perfect landscape. Crystal clear rivers flow along the valley floor, while beech and fir forests cover the slopes. In spring and summer, light filters through the trees and reflects on the water, creating an atmosphere of calm and balance. But beyond its beauty, this place is also a testimony to the passage of time. The marks left by ancient glaciers can still be seen in the shape of the mountains, in the folds of the rock and in the vast openness of the valleys. When the mist descends among the peaks and the clouds wrap around the mountains, the landscape takes on an almost unreal character, as if these mountains existed outside of time. The Pyrenees, and especially Ordesa and Monte Perdido, are much more than a national park. They are one of the great natural sanctuaries of Europe, a place where silence, light, and mountain come together to create one of the most powerful and authentic experiences in Spain. Leaving behind the majestic landscapes of the Pyrenees, our journey now continues toward the south of Spain. In the heart of Andalusia stands one of the most extraordinary monuments in the world, the Mosque of Córdoba, a unique place where history, art, and spirituality come together in a single space. Originally built in the 8th century during the height of Al-Andalus, the mosque was expanded over centuries until it became one of the largest Islamic temples in the world. Its interior is unmistakable, a forest of columns and arches that seem to extend endlessly, creating a powerful sense of rhythm, balance, and silence. Light filters through the arches, transforming the space into an almost hypnotic experience. But the story of this place does not end there. After the Christian conquest in the 13th century, a cathedral was built within the structure. A unique transformation that turned this monument into a symbol of the coexistence and layering of cultures in Spain. Today, the Mosque of Córdoba is much more than a monument. It is a living testimony to the passage of different civilizations, a place where time has left its mark without erasing what came before, and where, walking among its columns, visitors feel as if they are crossing centuries of history in a single moment. Leaving behind the legacy of ancient civilizations in Córdoba, our journey now takes us into the heart of Castile, an open and silent landscape where the land and the sky seem to stretch endlessly. Here, among fields of wheat moving gently with the wind, appears one of the most universal images of Spain, the windmills of La Mancha. These landscapes of golden wheat fields dotted with white windmills form one of the most iconic images of Spain. In places like Consuegra, these white structures have stood on the hills for centuries, dominating the horizon with their slowly turning blades. But these windmills are not only part of the landscape, they are also part of one of the most famous scenes in world literature. In the 17th century, the writer Miguel de Cervantes imagined here the story of Don Quixote, a knight who, driven by his ideals and imagination, mistook the windmills for giants and decided to fight them. That moment, both symbolic and unforgettable, turned these windmills into a universal icon. But beyond literature, these giants of wood and stone were for centuries an essential tool. Using the power of the wind, they were used to grind grain and sustain life in these vast plains. Today, their silhouette still defines the landscape, and when the sun sets over the golden fields and the blades turn slowly against the sky, the windmills of La Mancha seem to remind us that reality and imagination can sometimes become one, a place where literature and land come together, and where the spirit of Don Quixote still rides between the wind and the wheat. Leaving behind the open fields of Castile, our journey now continues toward the northern coast of Spain, in the Basque Country, where the Cantabrian Sea has been shaping the land for millions of years. One of the most extraordinary landscapes in Europe appears, Zumaya. Here, time is written in stone. Along this coastline stretches the Fleisch, a unique geological formation where layers of rock are stacked like the pages of a book. Each layer holds the memory of millions of years of Earth's history. The movement of the sea, the wind and erosion have gradually revealed these formations, creating a landscape of tilted lines that extend into the ocean, a place where geology becomes visible. Walking along this coast is like traveling through the past of our planet. Between tides, rocks and cliffs, visitors move across a terrain shaped slowly over time. When waves crash against the layers of stone and water flows between them, the landscape takes on an almost hypnotic power. Zumaya is not just a beach, it is a testimony of time. A place where the history of the earth can be read in every rock, and where the sea, relentless, continues to write new pages every day. Leaving behind the wild northern coast, our journey now continues toward the Mediterranean. There, between the sea and the mountains, lies one of the most vibrant and creative cities in Europe, Barcelona. A city where history, art, and architecture come together to form a unique identity. Its urban layout, designed in the 19th century by Ildefons Cerda, transformed the city into an open and organized space. A network of wide avenues and geometric blocks that still defines life in Barcelona today. But if there is one structure that truly represents the spirit of the city, it is the Sagrada Familia. A basilica unlike any other in the world, designed by architect Antoni Gaudí. Construction began in 1882, and more than a century later, it is still ongoing. Gaudí envisioned this temple as a total work of art, where architecture, nature, and spirituality are united. Its towers rise toward the sky like living sculptures, representing apostles, evangelists, and other biblical figures. Inside, columns branch like trees, creating a space that resembles a forest of stone illuminated by colored light from the stained glass windows. Every detail is filled with symbolism. Every form seems inspired by nature. But Barcelona is not only about modern creativity. Just a short distance from the city, the landscape changes completely. There rises Montserrat, a mountain of unique shapes sculpted over millions of years, where the rock formations seem almost unreal. Within it stands the monastery of Montserrat, one of the most important spiritual sites in Catalonia, a place of history, tradition, and devotion. Here is venerated the Virgin of Montserrat, known as La Moreneta, the patron saint of Catalonia. Barcelona and Montserrat represent two ways of understanding the same land. The city, open to the sea, creative and modern, and the mountain, silent and spiritual. Two different landscapes, one shared spirit, a place where nature, history, and art coexist in harmony. Leaving behind the inland landscapes, our journey now continues toward one of the most unexpected territories in Spain. In the southeast of Navarra, a landscape appears that seems to belong to another continent, the Bardenas Reales, a vast semi-desert where wind, water, and time have sculpted the land into unique shapes. Eroded hills, ravines, and clay formations rise across a dry and silent landscape. Here, nature has worked for thousands of years to create a scene that resembles the deserts of the American West. Among all its formations, one stands above the rest. This is Castil de Tierra, a solitary structure rising from the ground like a natural tower, now the true symbol of this landscape. But the Bardenas are not only visually striking, they are also a land of contrasts. A territory where harsh climate and scarce water have shaped life for centuries, and where silence, broken only by the wind, becomes part of the experience. Walking through this landscape feels like entering a place outside of time, an almost unreal territory within Spain. The Bardenas Reales are much more than a desert. They are a reminder of how nature, with patience, can transform the land into one of the most unique landscapes in Europe. Leaving behind the arid landscapes of Navarra, our journey now continues toward the south of Spain. There, bathed in the light of the Guadalquivir River, stands one of the most vibrant and historic cities in the country. This is Seville, the capital of Andalusia. Seville is a city where time seems to move to the rhythm of light, art, and tradition. Its history is reflected in some of the most iconic monuments in Spain. The Cathedral of Seville, one of the largest in the world, built over a former mosque, holds centuries of history and faith within its walls. Beside it rises the Giralda, once a minaret and now a bell tower, which has become one of the great symbols of the city. Nearby stands the Royal Alcazar, a palace where Islamic and Christian architecture come together to create one of the most beautiful complexes in Europe. And along the riverbank, the Torre del Oro recalls Seville's maritime past, when the city was the gateway to the New World. But Seville is much more than its monuments. It is a city to be experienced. Every spring, the city transforms with the Feria de Abril. For several days, Seville fills with light, music, and color. Traditional dresses, decorated tents, horses, and flamenco dancing create a unique atmosphere where celebration and tradition come together. At the heart of this culture lies flamenco, a deeply expressive art that combines singing, dancing, and music. Born in Andalusia, flamenco has crossed borders and is now recognized worldwide as one of Spain's greatest cultural expressions. Seville is all of this: history, art, tradition, and emotion. A city where every corner has its own life, and where, as night falls and a guitar begins to play, one understands that here culture is not only seen, it is felt. Leaving behind the intensity and artistic spirit of Seville, our journey now continues toward the Mediterranean. There, surrounded by clear waters, lies one of the most peaceful and luminous islands in Spain. This is Formentera, a place where time seems to slow down. Its white sandy beaches stretch alongside waters of turquoise tones that resemble distant Caribbean landscapes. Along its coastline, small remote coves with crystal clear waters offer hidden spaces of calm and beauty. Here, simplicity defines everything, natural, untouched. The landscape is shaped by the balance between sea, light, and silence. Dirt paths, solitary lighthouses, and open horizons create a sense of peace that is hard to find elsewhere. Formentera is not a place of grand monuments. It is a place to be experienced, where every corner invites you to pause, observe, and follow the slow rhythm of the Mediterranean. And as the sun begins to set and the sky turns golden and pink, the island reveals its true essence. A refuge of light, sea, and tranquility, one of the most pure and serene landscapes in Spain. Leaving behind the luminous calm of the Mediterranean, our journey now continues toward the northwest of Spain. There, among rain, stone, and history, stands one of the most universal destinations in the country, Santiago de Compostela. At the heart of the city stands its most iconic symbol, the Cathedral of Santiago, an imposing temple of Romanesque origin, begun in the 11th century and later enriched with Gothic and Baroque elements. Its grand and detailed facade welcomes visitors from all over the world. Inside, tradition holds that the remains of St. James the Apostle are buried, a place that for centuries has been a major center of pilgrimage. Because Santiago is not just a city, it is the end of a journey, the Camino de Santiago, a network of routes that, from different parts of Europe, all converge here. Its origins date back to the Middle Ages, when thousands of pilgrims began walking these paths driven by faith. Today, centuries later, the Camino is still alive. Every year, people from all over the world travel these routes on foot, by bicycle, or on horseback. Some come for religious reasons, others for personal, cultural, or spiritual discovery. But all share the same experience, the journey. Arriving at Obradoiro Square in front of the cathedral becomes a unique moment, an ending, and also a beginning. Santiago de Compostela is more than a destination. It is a meeting point, a place where paths, stories, and people from all over the world have converged for centuries. Leaving behind the spiritual atmosphere of Santiago de Compostela, our journey now continues toward one of the most extraordinary landscapes in Spain. In the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of Africa, emerges an island unlike any other, Lanzarote. A land shaped by fire, fields of lava, craters, and dark terrain stretch to the horizon, creating a landscape that seems to belong to another world. This environment was formed by powerful volcanic eruptions that, centuries ago, completely transformed the island. Today, places like Caldera Blanca reveal the scale of this volcanic origin, a vast crater where silence and immensity dominate the landscape. Yet, even in this extreme environment, life has found a way. In Lageria, vineyards are planted by digging holes into the volcanic soil, protected by semicircular stone walls that shield the vines from the wind. A unique form of agriculture found only here, one that transforms harsh terrain into a landscape of remarkable beauty. Contrast also appears in its villages. White houses reflect the sunlight and blend harmoniously with the dark volcanic surroundings, a balance between architecture and nature that defines the island. Along the coast, another striking phenomenon appears, the Green Lagoon, a small lake of intense emerald color formed inside an ancient volcanic crater by the sea. A place where color, light, and landscape create an almost unreal image. Lanzarote is a land of contrasts, of fire and calm, of harshness and delicacy. A place where humans have learned to live in harmony with extreme nature, and where every landscape reminds us that even in the most inhospitable environments, beauty always finds a way to appear. Leaving behind the volcanic landscapes of Lanzarote, our journey now returns to the south of the Iberian Peninsula. In the interior of Andalusia, between mountains and open fields, rises one of the most breathtaking towns in Spain, Ronda, a city built on the edge of a deep gorge that divides its history in two. El Tajo of Ronda,
a dramatic canyon more than 100 meters deep that has shaped the life and landscape of the city for centuries. Connecting both sides stands its most iconic landmark, the Puente Nuevo, a monumental stone bridge that seems to emerge from the rock itself, suspended above the void. From its viewpoints, the landscape opens wide, contrasting the vast horizon with the depth of the gorge. But Ronda is much more than its bridge. It is an ancient city where Romans, Muslims, and Christians have all left their mark. Its white streets, quiet squares, and balconies overlooking the landscape create an atmosphere full of history and calm. Here stands one of the oldest bull rings in Spain, a place deeply connected to the traditions and culture of the city. For centuries, Ronda has inspired travelers, writers, and artists, drawn by its beauty, its character, and its unique location. And as the sun sets over the mountains and golden light touches the bridge and the walls of the gorge, the city reveals its full power. A place where architecture and nature come together in a truly spectacular way. One of the most impressive landscapes in Andalusia. Leaving behind the dramatic landscapes of Ronda, our journey now continues toward the heart of Castile. There, alongside cities such as Toledo and Segovia, lies one of the most essential destinations in Spain, Avila. Declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site, this city stands out for the purity of its history and the strength of its architecture. Among its monuments, the cathedral, with its almost fortress-like appearance, reflects the defensive character of the medieval city. But above all, Avila is defined by its walls. Considered among the best preserved in the world, they completely encircle the city with a perimeter of more than 2.5 kilometers. Their towers and stone ramparts create a striking silhouette that has remained almost unchanged for centuries. In some sections, it is possible to walk along the walls. From there, the city reveals itself from a different perspective, as if time had stood still within its stones. But Avila is not only about history and architecture. It is also deeply marked by a universal figure, the mystic Saint Teresa of Jesus. Mystic and writer, her presence can still be felt throughout the city. Many believe that her most famous work, the interior castle, was inspired by these very walls, by the idea of the soul as a fortress, holding within it a path toward its deepest center. Avila is therefore much more than a walled city. It is a place where stone, history, and spirit come together, one of the most essential landscapes in Spain. Leaving behind the walls of Avila, we now begin the final great journey of our route. In the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of Africa, rises an island where nature reaches one of its most spectacular forms, Tenerife, a land of contrasts where the green landscapes of the north and the volcanic terrain of the south coexist within the same island. But at its heart stands a presence that dominates everything, Mount Teide. With more than 3,700 meters of elevation, it is the highest peak in Spain and one of the most imposing volcanoes in the world. Its silhouette rises above a landscape that seems to belong to another world, Teide National Park, a vast territory of lava, craters, and volcanic formations where time itself appears to stand still. Here, the light is constantly changing. At sunrise, golden tones spread across the land, and at night, the sky becomes one of the clearest and most star-filled in Europe. But Teide is more than a mountain. It is the symbol of the island and of the volcanic origin that defines the Canary Islands, a place where the power of the earth becomes visible, where the landscape reminds us of the very origins of our planet. To ascend toward its heights is to enter a world of silence, vastness, and extreme beauty. And when the sun sets and Teide casts its shadow across the ocean, one understands why this place is among the most extraordinary in Spain. Tenerife is the final destination of this journey, a last stop where nature reaches its fullest expression, a place that is not only visited, it is contemplated, it is felt, and it is remembered. we have reached the end of this journey. A journey through some of the most beautiful and extraordinary places in Spain, where every landscape, every city, and every corner has revealed a different story. From the power of nature to the deep imprint of history, this path has taken us through a land of contrast, light, and emotion. But every journey leaves behind more than memories. It leaves a feeling, a desire to keep moving forward, to look beyond the horizon, and to discover new places where beauty can once again surprise us. Thank you for joining us on this journey with Incredible Planet TV. If you have felt that same emotion, that same desire to explore, we invite you to continue traveling with us. Subscribe and join us on future adventures, where we will discover some of the most breathtaking places in the world. Because there are still many destinations to explore, many stories to tell, and many landscapes waiting to be discovered. This is not the end. It is only the beginning of a much greater journey. Incredible Planet TV.